Hi, welcome to Dissent Today's Women's Day special. I'm Ailia Zehra, and in this show, we'll talk about something that's affecting both Pakistan and Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, we have seen that the Taliban, which are governing the country since 2021, have imposed several restrictions on women. Girls' education has been banned. Girls are stopped from getting an education beyond, I think, the sixth grade. Women are banned from university, and their right to, I think, even exist in the public sphere is being targeted by the Taliban. So we'll talk about that, but also Pakistan, because in many ways it concerns the situation in Afghanistan, and the way in which women are being targeted in that country affects Pakistan also, especially the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, which borders Afghanistan. And since the Taliban takeover of Kabul in 2021, we have seen that there has been a rise in Taliban attacks in Pakistan also. And there have been some incidents in recent months where girls' schools were attacked in Waziristan by the Taliban militants. But we didn't see much outrage about it in Pakistan's mainstream media or by mainstream parties. So we'll discuss both these countries, both these regions. And joining me today are two very special guests: Bushra Gohar, who is a former member of Pakistan's National Assembly from the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, and Mariam Solaimankhil, who is a former member of the Afghanistan Parliament. And we'll talk about both our countries. And thank you both for joining us. And I want to start with Afghanistan because we don't really hear much about Afghanistan in Pakistani media. So Mariam, thanks for joining us. Could you give us a bit of an overview of the latest situation in Afghanistan when it comes to the rights of women? And if you could, touch on the latest restrictions that have been imposed by the Taliban. I was looking at a recent report that said that Taliban are also trying to ban windows in places that where women live, which is kind of absurd. And a lot of absurd rulings have come out of Afghanistan. So could you tell us a bit about the situation there?
Well, nothing is surprising. First of all, thank you for having me on your program. Nothing is surprising when it comes to women and Taliban and how they're pushing the limit of oppression towards us. As you mentioned, yeah, they've banned any type of window that could be seen from the outside. If a neighbor could see it or someone walking by or crossing could see it, those have been banned. And new construction workers and new construction buildings have been told not to build these types of buildings or windows in those type of areas. That's one of the issues, but it's been almost 1,300 days where women can't go to school after sixth grade. Women have been cut off from being educated in the fields such as midwifery and medical fields, which are necessary for women's health and many other reasons. The mortality rates are absurd. Women are disappearing on a daily basis. Their family members are killing them. Husbands are killing them. They go missing, and the Taliban say that this is something that's internal. We're not meddling into people's businesses, and that's that. They're not allowed to think anymore. They're not allowed to dream anymore. The suicide rates are rising day by day, and it's a systemic erasure of women. It's not about culture. Women's oppression has been part of global culture. It's very new to have women's rights. This is not my culture, but this has been brought into the actual governance system. It's become law. It's become the rule. And this is where my heart breaks for my people, because the international community doesn't stand by them. There's no pressure put on them, and they're just allowing women to be erased from an entire country, from their own motherland.
Right. Thank you for giving this overview. And we've been hearing these recent reports that are very disturbing, but it doesn't seem like the international community is doing something about it. Bushra Sahib, I'll come to you. You heard what Mariam said about the latest situation in Afghanistan. In Pakistan, we saw that when the Taliban took over Afghanistan, there was a lot of celebration also by some in Pakistan, right? And we were cheering that on in Pakistan. Even Pakistan's ruling elite was okay with what was going on. So do you think Pakistan needs to play a role here in terms of, we haven't really condemned what the Taliban are doing right now, the restrictions that have been placed? Do you think that what is going on, the bans that have been placed on women in Afghanistan, will that have an impact on Pakistan also? And what do you think should be the response from Pakistan?
Well, you see, first of all, thank you for having me. You must have seen a young Afghan girl holding a placard in Lahore or one of the cricket matches, asking for her basic rights, that she wants to become a doctor and, she can't in Afghanistan. So in my opinion, Pakistan facilitated the Taliban takeover. And Doha deal, which is, in my opinion, a criminal deal, when it was taking place, we were warning, and many women in Afghanistan were also warning that this will actually spill over. We were also afraid that it will spill over to Pakistan. But here in Pakistan, everyone was happy. They said this is Taliban too. The US was also saying the same, that this is not going to happen. And look what has happened. Afghanistan is suffering today. The girls are asking for basic right to education. There's gender apartheid there. And in Pakistan, I think, you don't see anyone really outraged by it. And also, Pakhtunkhwa is being affected, so the rest of Pakistan doesn't care.
Right.
And we have to actually really, the women groups in the region should stand up and stand with the Afghan women, because they are fighting this war for their rights alone. They're all alone. They're going around, and at least what I see is that they're very brave. They've been able to get attention. What we saw, the International Court of Justice's verdict, which is quite strong. We need to do more. And Pakistani women need to stand up, because it's coming to us as well. Pakhtunkhwa is already engulfed. So I think there's a lot that we could be doing.
Yeah.
What I find in Pakhtunkhwa is that they have actually, for the past 12 years, through a plan, we have the Pindis selected government. We don't have a government in Pakhtunkhwa right now, an elected government. So there's a plan going on. They brought in 5,000 terrorists, rehabilitated them here. So they were not brought back just so that we could have peace in the region. There's a plan for a new proxy war.
We'll come to that in a bit, but I will definitely discuss this later on. But I want to also ask you, you have been talking about the treatment of Afghan refugees in Pakistan also. So a lot of women are also in Pakistan who sought refuge from the Taliban. Pakistan has not been treating them well. There have been deportations. And so could you comment on that as well? In Islamabad, what have you seen? How are Afghan refugees being treated by Pakistan?
It's condemnable. We've condemned it. We've actually gone to UNHCR to also talk to them about what is going on. If there's a difference between the government of Pakistan and the Taliban occupying Afghanistan, the Afghan refugees shouldn't be targeted for it. They're trying to build pressure on the Taliban terrorists occupying Afghanistan. And they're doing it by pressurizing the Afghan refugees in Pakistan. They were rounding up women and children. They were separating children and deporting them. Many had documents also with them, yet they were taken. And I called personally the police conducting these raids on, it was dehumanizing the way they were picking up Afghan refugees. And they were also warned to leave Islamabad in a short while. They had already paid a lot of money to get a place to live there, and they were asked to leave. So there's a lot of extortion going on. It's a very bad situation here. But when we talk to the UNHCR also, they seemed so helpless. So who to turn to when there's a hostile environment for refugees who've actually left? They can't go back, and you can't send girls back to a place which is very hostile for them. So it's a hostile environment here and sending them back to a violent environment. This is inhuman, in my opinion.
Right, right. Mariam, coming back to you, we have seen that Pakistan has not really taken responsibility for this influx of refugees that resulted from the Taliban takeover. You're in exile right now in the US. There are many diaspora community members from Afghanistan who are there. Do you think the diaspora, Afghan diaspora abroad, is doing enough to challenge the Taliban, the situation? Is there something going on where they're trying to push back against the regime?
We're seeing a lot of movement. There's a lot of resistance groups. There's a lot of people who are gathering. And it's since August 15, 2021, we've all been screaming into the void, warning the world that this is not just going to stay in Afghanistan, that this is going to have repercussions, that this is going to spread into our neighboring countries, then it's going to go into the Islamic world, and then it's going to come into Europe and to the United States, where we live in an interconnected world. So yes, I've gone to many of these conferences. There's many resistance groups. The ANDSF is still waiting and ready to come back and take our country. But unfortunately, because of our geopolitical location, the politics that goes into Afghanistan is overly complicated. But I just wanted to add on to what Bushra John had said. First of all, I want to say that women like herself and women like Munija Kakar, they have done a tremendous amount for the women who've been imprisoned, which I think it's like 70% of the people who are imprisoned in Pakistan right now out of the refugees are women. I just wanted to say one thing that's really heartbreaking to me is that it's so easy to deport Afghan women and children. But when Osama bin Laden and terrorists who created the idea of suicide bombing are living in Pakistan, they never get deported. So it's not just Afghans who suffer with this. First and foremost, it are the citizens of Pakistan who are suffering the most by the hands of the military establishment.
Right. Right. Definitely, these policies of the state definitely played a role in the situation right now. Bushra Saiba, you talked a little bit about the rise in Taliban attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is not something Pakistan's mainstream seems to care about. There has been no discussion about it. We saw that there were some statements from the military about who was responsible for the resurgence of the Taliban, and they were just, it seemed like a blame game where they were blaming the civilian government of the time and the PTI. And the PTI was obviously, had a very pro-Taliban approach, but it was not ready to take responsibility either. So no one seems to be accepting the fact that this happened and they resettled the Taliban in parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. What is the latest situation there? I'm hearing reports that some areas are now controlled by the Taliban in tribal areas in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. What do you hear from there, and how bad is the situation when it comes to the Taliban influence in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa?
Well, we don't have a government. I've said it already. We don't have a government in Pakhtunkhwa. It is controlled from Pindi. And, the other day I went to Banu to attend the anniversary of some of our party members who were killed post the 2024 elections. It was, everyone was so frightened because Banu, Lucky Marwat, Dera Ismail Khan, where the chief minister comes from, and the governor also belongs to that area, is a no-go area. The tribal belt is also a no-go area. So in my opinion, this is a very planned thing going on here, where the Taliban were brought in to take over. And I don't see any resistance from the government here, or the government taking responsibility for what is going on. Schools were blown up. There's also a lot of pressure on women not to behave in a certain manner. I mean, if I can't go to Banu, and I did go to Banu, but I could see the environment there. There's a lot of, and anyone who talks about peace in these districts in Pakhtunkhwa, they're picked up. So you can't question what is going on. The good-bad policy is continuing, but the minute you question it, there are several FIRs against you. The only thing that we think is different from the past is that the people understand what is going on, and we've had many uprisings in each district. There are protests against the Taliban resettlement in our province. So people understand it, and they've come out in numbers against it. And I think that is the movement that we need to ensure that Pakhtunkhwa is not taken over or run over by these proxies supported by the powers. I mean, I think that now we all know that the US has been paying for all this post-Doha deal. So we have to actually hold the international community also accountable for what is going on. And the contractors, the regional contractors need to be questioned as well. Right now, I think the people will have to come out, and that is what the people in Pakhtunkhwa are doing. They're resisting these policies. The good, bad Taliban policy is still there. It is intact. And we don't see it being questioned in the provincial assembly or in the national assembly. I mean, how many debates have we had on what is going on in Pakhtunkhwa?
Right. I want to follow up quickly on what you said earlier. You made an interesting comment about how there is no government in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. I mean, I totally get what you mean, but could you elaborate on that? You don't think that the PTI government that is ruling the province right now is a legitimate one?
Not at all. I mean, it was given this, I mean, PTI government has been in Pakhtunkhwa for 12 years now. And we've had Taliban come in and take over. You ask the current chief minister if he really is in control. He's not. He's getting orders from Pindi. And the other thing is that he's there, and this government is there to distract attention from what is going on with this new proxy war that is being prepared on our land in Pakhtunkhwa.
Right. And I'll come to that in a bit. I do have some more questions about the provincial government because we have been, hearing some concerns about it. But Mariam, coming back to you, what do you think should Pakistan's civil society's role should be? You mentioned earlier that people like Bushra Gohar, others who are from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa are lending support and solidarity to Afghan refugees. But what was the overall response that you saw from Pakistan? You were in Afghanistan when the takeover happened, and then to this day, do you think Pakistan's civil society, progressive voices in Pakistan, are expressing solidarity with the Afghan people during this crisis, or do you think they need to do more?
This is such a deep question for me personally, because I know that the people who are oppressed the most by Pakistan is, number one, the Pakistani people, and then number two, Afghans, right after that. And unfortunately, our situation might be a lot worse, but I know the situation over there is not any better. And to expect things is one thing, and to know what kind of government it is something else. To realize that it's not a democracy. The people's voice doesn't matter. I've dealt with the parliament members. I've dealt with the ministers from Pakistan, and they're powerless. It's the military dictatorship under the veil of democracy, and that's what it is. What I would like to see, what I would love to see from my brothers and sisters on the other side of the Duran line, is that if someone in civil society got together and made a commission to investigate the help and the support to Taliban, as well as the other terrorist organizations that have been founded in Pakistan, where it came from, who did this, the collapse of Afghanistan, if there was an investigation that happened from civil society on the other side of the Duran line in regards to the meddling of the military establishment in the downfall and the collapse of Afghanistan, which has affected Pakistan as well, that would be wonderful to see, to apply pressure in such a way. But my advice always to my Pakistani brothers and sisters are always that stand strong and fight for your own rights, because when the people really get a voice over there, I believe that things will get peaceful in the entire region, not just in Pakistan.
Right. And you think that the Afghan people who are involved in the decision-making process and who are, holding talks, are they doing enough? We've seen that some people have also tried to whitewash the Taliban's crimes by saying that they've improved themselves now. They're not as bad as they were during their previous rule. So what is Afghan men's role in this whole process? Do you think they need to also come forward and challenge the Taliban?
Of course, I think that right now women are on the front line, fighting the war for women's rights as human beings, not just women's rights in a big broader picture, but a very basic version of human rights is what we're fighting for, and we're on the front line. And it seems like it's just an Afghan thing, but this can very easily be done within hours in anywhere in the world. So just like Afghans were on the front line fighting the war against terrorism, now Afghan women are on the front line fighting the war for women's rights. But the men, they've had their chance. The men have had their chance through their monarchy. The men have had their chance through presidencies, communism, mujahideen, mullahs. They've had all of their chances. The only group that's been left without a chance, and that I really truly believe in, are the women of Afghanistan. I think unless there's something that's women-led and women-run, they would be repeating the same mistake over and over again. So I do see a lot of solidarity from Afghan men in support of Afghan women, and I think it would be shocking over the people and the men who are standing behind us. On a daily basis, I get calls from people from very high positions to people as the nomadic groups that I would represent in Afghanistan, who are saying that we believe in the women of Afghanistan. You guys are honest. You guys love the country. You have that motherly nature within you, and we know that it's pure, that there's none of those patriarchal games within us. So there's a lot of support within men. What we need now is international female support. The fight for that we're fighting right now for human rights for women is not just a fight for Afghan women. This is a responsibility for every woman on this planet to raise their voice, to stand up for Afghan women, and not let a gender apartheid happen anywhere on this planet. There should be a punishment for anyone who tries to erase women the way that the Taliban have. And the idea that some lobbyists try to say that this is a Taliban 2.0, that they've changed. Yeah, they have changed. They've gotten much worse. They have a PR team that's covering up all of their crimes. So they might look good to foreigners, but in reality, it's a much, much more dangerous situation.
Yes. That's an important point you make, because a lot of foreign bloggers and journalists are being brought by the Taliban to Afghanistan so that they can show like this fake picture that everything is going well in Afghanistan. But which is why we wanted to have this discussion, so we could talk to people who have actual stakes in Afghanistan and hear from them what's going on. So coming back to Pakistan, Bushra Saiba, you talked a bit about the situation in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and we talked about the provincial government also. One thing that I wanted to address with you specifically was that the chief minister of the province, who you just talked about, he is known to be very misogynistic, and he often attacks his women opponents during his speeches and his rallies. He's attacked the chief minister of Punjab, Mariam Nawaz, through misogynistic remarks many times. And every now and then he says something that is deeply problematic and sexist in nature. So you're from that province, and I'm sure you've seen it. It's a patriarchal and conservative province, and where women already don't have access to equal opportunities. Do you think that the head of the province engaging in this kind of rhetoric against women, misogynistic rhetoric, do you think it has a chilling effect on the participation of women? What do you think about these remarks that he makes?
Well, first of all, this current government, the powerless government that has been brought in and controlled by Pindi. Basically, you see, the Taliban project and the Taliban project is one and the same. And Pindi controls both. So, bringing such a man and choosing him to be the chief minister is very clear that Pindi doesn't want rights of the people, and it's basically they're trying to oppress women. I mean, it's very condemnable what he says. but he's a non-serious person. Nobody takes him seriously. Look what is going on in Kurum. He hasn't been able to handle this one district. So I have no expectation from this government. It is a Pindi-controlled setup. And what we really need is a movement against this unannounced dictatorship in the country. We have a martial law right now. And martial law and Pindi will always nominate people like this current chief minister, Taliban Khan, and others. So, I mean, they want to destroy us. It is the people of Pakhtunkhwa who've been resisting. And we've had uprisings in each and every district. Even now, there are protests going on in many of the districts. So basically, I have no expectations, and nobody takes him seriously in Pakhtunkhwa. I mean, he's not in control. He's a distraction, and yes, and he's the provincial assembly. Nobody takes them. I don't even know who's who right now. The cabinet doesn't really meet. There's not a single woman in the cabinet, in Pakhtunkhwa cabinet. So it is a Taliban Khan government controlled by Pindi, basically.
Right. We have seen that the provincial government was very involved in protests in Islamabad that were led by the party which rules the province, but there's very little attention that they pay on what's going on in the province. So you mentioned Parachinar earlier, so I just wanted to quickly follow up on that. After the Parachinar incident, there were jirgas that were held to discuss the issue. Why are jirgas still being held? I mean, isn't the concept of jirga anti-women? We thought that when FATA, after the merger of FATA with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, this would change, right? That was the plan, if I'm not mistaken, that this would, the tribal areas which did not fall under the Pakistani constitution would become Pakistani state's responsibility. Why is the Pakistani state letting random tribal jirgas decide what to do when 100 people have been killed and there's no FIR, there's no murder trial? Jirgas, tribal jirgas and tribal heads on their own are deciding, and they definitely don't have any representation of women. So that is also a concern. So jirgas...
Yeah. I have questioned it many times, that what happened in Kurum, there was an attack on passengers going to through a certain area. You don't hold jirgas with criminals. There's a law, and that needs to be applied, basically. So I personally think that a consultative process where we all sit together to try to resolve issues is okay. But the government nominated members who become jirga members, they have no powers. Why should we hold jirgas? I asked them, I said, if a similar act took place in Lahore, would you hold a jirga? No. The law will take its course. So why not in Kurum? Why not in other places? So basically, I think they want to keep us tribal, so that, you know, our rights...
We haven't seen much pushback on this, even from nationalist politicians. I mean, even nationalist politicians, Pashtun politicians attend the jirgas. Don't you think there should be some more pushback from people who were demanding the merger of FATA with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa? Shouldn't they now demand that stop holding jirgas?
It's happening everywhere in Pakhtunkhwa right now. If there's a problem and if there's a criminal act, they'll always say, we'll hold a jirga. And we've seen even uniformed generals holding jirgas. I mean, this kind of thing shouldn't be encouraged at all. I attended one of the consultations in Gohar on behalf of my party, and I did question why women were not there. And most of the people who were there were government-nominated members. So I think that there's a provincial assembly. The provincial Assembly should be taking up the issues. There's a cabinet, so I don't understand why we have to have parallel setups. And this should be questioned, and especially if the women are not represented. Those jirgas should be rejected. We then had an APC also called by the governor, which was quite good actually. At least all political parties got together, but women were not invited. You see, political parties also send delegations, all male delegations, to sit in these events. So there were only 2 of us in that APC, and I asked the governor to hold a meeting with just women of Pakhtunkhwa then, to hear what they have to say. So basically, I don't think that jirgas as a consultative process is all right, but jirgas should not have judicial role. We have laws, and laws should be I mean, for criminal activities, they've been killing people in Kurum. Children have been killed, women have been killed, and there should be there's been beheading, and everyone has seen all that on videos, and the government hasn't done anything. So if they can't handle one district, how can they handle, or they don't plan to handle or bring peace in this province? Things are quite bad in Pakhtunkhwa. And what I find very difficult is when I turn on the mainstream channels.
Right.
Pakhtunkhwa and the situation in Pakhtunkhwa is not even discussed.
Yeah, no, definitely.
For 24
Which is why we
hours.
wanted to have this discussion so that we can talk about it. So we're running almost out of time, but I want to have this final question to you, Mariam, about the situation in Afghanistan. We talk about a lot of people say that economic sanctions against Afghanistan are not really working, and they harm the people instead of teaching the Taliban a lesson. What is your position on that? What do you think should the international community what their position should be when it comes to sanctions against the Taliban? Do you think they hurt the regime or the people in Afghanistan?
I think there's very little more that you can do to hurt the people of Afghanistan. What else can be done? They don't have a future. My entire national identity is being replaced with an Islamic extremist identity. Women can't dream anymore. I mean, just basic to sit at home, to put your head down on your pillow and to think, what am I going to do tomorrow? Or is tomorrow going to be a good day? You don't have a right to do that anymore. You don't have a right to go to a cemetery anymore. You don't have a right to pray amongst other women anymore. So sanctions are nothing in my eyes. Cutting the Taliban off is what needs to happen. And that's the only option left. Diplomatically, they should be cut off. Financially, they should be cut off. They should be held accountable for gender apartheid. Definitely that should happen. And then to the highest courts and to the strongest punishments that are available for them. We should not take this easily. Women are human. Human rights are women's rights. Women's rights are human rights. And the amount of abuse that have happened and that women have to endure on a daily basis, future leaders should learn from this, that they should never touch this subject again. So that's what I expect from the international community. And yes, it will affect the people. Cutting off the money to the nation, it will affect the people, and it hurts, and it's hard to say it. But these decisions need to be made for the future generations of my country and for the future generations, for a safer world, for a better world.
Right. Thank you. So I wish we had more time, but we'll have to end our discussion here. Thank you both for joining us. I'm glad that we talked about this issue that is not really discussed by the mainstream media, international media, or mainstream media in Pakistan. So thank you for watching.